Good afternoon. I'm calling the Redevelopment Commission meeting for Tuesday, June 10th to order. I'll just keep talking. First item is to amend the agenda. May I have a motion, please?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next item, approval of the May 13, 2025 regular meeting minutes. May I have a motion, please?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Bids, do we have any bids?
We do not.
You know, you could have said that from back there. Okay. First item is public hearing on the 2025-2029 Citizen Participation Plan, 2025-2029 Neighborhood Revitalization Strategy Area, CDBG Consolidated Plan, and 2025 Annual Action Plan. Are we having public hearing on everything? Okay.
I believe you have to open for public hearing.
Oh, I thought I just did that. Okay, I now open for public hearing.
So we do have a brief presentation for you about the Community Development Block Grant Entitlement application, which is what we're considering today. This year we are in our consolidated plan phase, which requires us to prepare and submit to HUD several different kinds of plans. And we've been going through this process since about December of last year. One is, as you've mentioned, the Citizen Participation Plan that outlined how we were going to go about amending the CDBG plan and the Fair Housing Plan, the NRSA, the Neighborhood Revitalization Strategy Area Plan, the Consolidated Plan, and the Program Year 25 Action Plan. So there's really four plans that you have in front of you. So we've been working through a process of community engagement, public meetings, subrecipient meetings, comment periods, and which brings us to today, which is a formal public hearing at the Redevelopment Commission, which does provide us an opportunity to review the plans and make changes to the plan. After that, this will go to the City Council for final approval. The plan is to do that on actually July 7th. So we've talked a little bit about the public participation plan. There were a number of meetings and notices given to the public, information distributed through newspaper ads and email and the websites and social media and that sort of thing, with copies of the draft plan for people to review. The second area is the Neighborhood Revitalization Strategy Area Plan. We have an opportunity right now to modify the boundaries of that neighborhood revitalization strategy area. In your packet here, you'll see a map of the new proposed boundaries, which is the pink area, the 2025-2029 NRSA, the new boundaries. So what we've done is we've shifted the NRSA south and extended it a little bit to the west. The NRSA itself has to meet certain low and moderate income criteria to be declared NRSA. Having the NRSA gives us a little bit more flexibility in how we can spend our CDBG funds within the NRSA. It just makes it a little more open and flexible as far as identifying beneficiaries. So this NRSA actually does extend to, I believe, Hively on the south. It goes west of Oakland on the west side, which is where the shift occurred. You'll see a page with some characteristics of the NRSA as far as population and economic indicators. I think you'll see that the NRSA is generally an area with lower median incomes and lower household incomes. Moving along, we have some of the objectives and activities that we hope to carry out within the NRSA. And these are just some broad categories of objectives: increasing the housing supply, increasing home ownership rates, median income, increase of median household income, improving the overall quality of housing, reducing environmental hazards in existing homes, reduce the number of vacant structures, improve infrastructure, and improve the neighborhood commercial quarters and business districts. We also made an effort to coordinate these plans with several of the other planning activities that have been going on in Elkhart, like the Benham Housing Project, the Thrive program, the downtown plan, and the next document is the actual consolidated plan. This is a 5-year plan that once approved by the city and submitted to HUD and accepted by HUD, kind of lays out the general framework of how we intend to invest the CDBG funds. Every year, we then adopt an annual action plan. So there's, we kind of already touched on some of the real high-level goals of the plan. There's a major emphasis on the housing supply, housing quality, increasing the median household income, which would be through job training activities and that sort of thing, and reducing environmental hazards. Our new lead program kind of already fits into that activity. I won't go through some of the activities and outcomes of the plan. They're very similar to the NRSA, but it also includes reducing insecurity such as homelessness, improving the neighborhood conditions, and other kinds of special needs of the homeless. The final document is the 2025 Annual Action Plan. This would guide our next year of activity. We have received notice of what our allocation will be for program year 25 of CDBG funds, which is about $712,246. There is a recommendation of projects on the last page that we would bring before you probably sometime in the summer. And this, of course, still, of course, is subject to change as we get additional input into how we allocate these funds. Many of the subrecipients are organizations that have applied for these funds beginning in about January and February of this year, because that's just frankly what our process has to be. So they apply, have to wait till we get our allocation, see how much funds we have to allocate, and then bring that back to the commission for formal approval. But as I said, this plan is still subject to additional input and change and review before we take it to the City Council for final acceptance. Are there any questions?
The fifth line, that page that's on the screen says Maple City Health?
Yes.
Should that say Hart City Health?
No, it's correct. It's Maple City.
Okay.
They actually service quite a number of folks from South Central neighborhood.
Okay.
They're North Goshen area, but a lot of the South Central folks that live in that area go to that clinic.
Interesting. Thank you.
On the funding, it has the CDBG allocation and then program income. What is that 24?
So we actually generate a small amount of program income. That actually dates back to the era of time when Elkhart was involved in the neighborhood stabilization program. I believe there were 2 programs dating back 10, 12 years ago where we acquired properties and homes, we renovated, turned them back out, and in the last few years, we've actually been a landlord to several homes that pay rent. And then also there were some individuals who received loans, lower interest loans to do rehab, that they signed notes and they continue to pay back these loans. So it's usually smaller increments of payment, $30, $100 a month. So that generates some of the program income for us. We really are focusing on moving those homes back into private hands as far as ownership, since we particularly don't want to be landlords to housing. Yeah.
Any other questions from the commissioners? Open it for any public comment or questions from members in the audience or electronically. I'm so sorry. There being none, I'm assuming I can close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Still working my way through the actual plan. Okay. Presentation. Okay. Next item is Baker Tilly to give the annual TIF.
Hello, my name is Greg Balsano, Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors. Thank you for having me here today. As Baker Tilly, we assist the redevelopment Christian City with a variety of things, including financial planning, bond issuances, and then as well as TIF. So,
Back into the microphone a little bit.
yeah, I apologize. Can you hear me better? No? Okay. Greg Balsano with Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors, here today to talk about your annual TIF presentation, to walk through kind of the status of your areas, how they are performing, what is kind of the plan for those areas, and discuss any impacts of TIF. In front of you, you should have 2 different reports. The teal kind of report here is the detail behind the presentation. So I'm going to cover the presentation. This will help answer any detailed questions you may have, but I'm happy to stop throughout and answer anything that you'd like. So again, starting with this presentation here, this PowerPoint file, I'm going to kind of cover a little bit about each of your TIF areas and how they are performing. Up on the screen, you can see a map of the current allocation and economic development areas, the handful that you guys do have. Each area that we go into will have a more detailed look at that area specifically. So we're going to start here with the Elkhart Aeroplex Business Park Economic Development Area. And so you can see on slide 4 the specific map of that area there. And then on slide 5, we're going to go into kind of the historical look at when this area was created and how it has performed and how we expect it to. So before I do want to note that in our estimates here, we have accounted for Senate Bill 1 estimated impacts. So some of those impacts kind of include a increase in deductions for the 2% circuit breaker properties. So those are things like long-term care, apartment complexes, rental residential housing. There's some increased deductions that will phase in through 2026 through 2031. In addition, for any areas that capture residential development, there are additional homestead credits and assessed value deductions that will see increases, again, from that same time period, 2026 through 2031. And so we have accounted for those in this analysis, which is why you'll see revenues declining in some areas over the next 5 to 6 years. I do also want to note, though, we do not assume any other increases or decreases in assessed value. So if there is new development that occurs beyond the taxes payable 2025 assessments, these estimates would change, which is why we kind of do this annual presentation. One, it's a requirement by the state, but also it's a kind of an update on how things are going. So with this allocation area, the Araplex area, it was initially created back in 2002 and then expanded in 2007. And you can see that correspondingly, the original portion will expire in 2032, with the expanded portion expiring in 2036. One thing to note is that throughout this presentation, you'll notice that different areas have different lifespans, some 25 years, some 30 years, some 25 years from the date debt is issued. The reason for those different expirations is just depending on what state law was at the time the area was created. The law has changed over time to where we are currently, which if a new area that was established would have a life of 25 years from the date debt is issued. For a residential area that captures homestead properties, it would have a deadline of 20 years from the date debt is issued. So that's the current law. But again, as we look back in time, at one point it was just a flat 30-year life. So you will see differences, and that is kind of why. You could see in page 2024 for this area, we estimated around $643,000, and collections came in at the bottom there, right at estimates. And then over time, you'll see in 25, we estimate a slight uptick to $652,930, and then slight decreases each year, where in 2031, it's down to about $621,970. And again, the reason for that is because of the new deductions that are going to start rolling on as a result of Senate Bill 1. But again, we don't assume any other increases from other properties. One thing I do want to note with Senate Bill 1, that if Senate Bill 1 resulted in an increase in tax rates, if that were to happen, theoretically the TIF would gain more revenue. That would be on the surface what would happen, and how historically if a tax rate has increased, you would collect more TIF revenue. However, there is a provision in Senate Bill 1 that the DLGF is allowed to neutralize so that the TIF does not see windfalls because of tax rate increases. So I do want to note that assessed value increases would certainly help the TIF, but tax rate increases, well, historically, if they've helped the TIF, they may not going forward because of that new provision in the law. So, going into slide 6, this is a illustrative budget for the area. So you can see a variety of things: personal services, supplies, capital outlays, public safety. Again, this is just an illustration. Working with Mike and Adam and their department of $605,100 of total expenses for the kind of 25-26 budget. Again, this is just for illustration purposes, just kind of show what could be spent from this area. And on slide 7 kind of illustrates what some of those projects could be. So sewer and water extension, airport maintenance roof, hangar improvements, and public safety expenses. Next, we're going to move into your Cassopolis Street corridor economic development area. And again, on slide 9, you can see the map specifically outlining that boundary. Slide 10 goes into those estimated revenues. So collections are estimated around $4.5 million. They came in just under $4.4 million in 24. And in 25, we expect an uptick to just under $4.9 million. And then that value to again slowly decline at 2031 to just over $4.3 million as a result of those new deductions. This area was created back in 2005 and expanded in 2036, so will expire in 2035 and 2036. Slide 11 again shows the illustrated budget, again looking at some similar categories here. Including capital outlays being the largest component, totaling a little over $9 million of potential expenses here for 25. Some of those expenses include the following projects that are on slide 12: downtown parking structure, Riverwalk improvements, Windsor improvements, and Cass wayfinding. Next, I'll move into the technology park redevelopment area. As again, you can see the map there on slide 14, and on slide 15, kind of looking at area being created in 2005 with an expiration of 2035. Revenues of around $329,000, estimate in 24, and collections came in right at about that level. In 25, expect similar levels of $316,000, with that slowly declining to the $300,880 in 2031. And after 2031, I want to mention that that's when the deductions start, they become constant. So there's, that's fully phased in from Senate Bill 1 as far as those deductions and new credits go, and then that's what it is in 2031 is what it will be, barring, future legislation changes. Slide 16 looks at, again, the illustrative budget here for this area, totaling $650,100, with most of this coming from brownfields. Some potential projects here, pedestrian improvements, corridor plan, and environmental remediation. Slide 19 goes into the consolidated South Elkhart Economic Development and Redevelopment area. And looking at that map here, the different expirations, you can see that there's a few different allocation areas that make up this economic development area, whereas the prior ones we were just kind of one for one. The economic development area had one allocation area. This has a handful. You can see there is the area number 2, Southwest Industrial. That was created in 2000 and will expire in 2031. Sterling East was created in 2004 and will expire in 2034. The Pierre Moran allocation area was done in 2005 and will expire in 2035. And then, as you can see, some new expirations here, that in South Main Street, that was created back in 2012 and will expire 25 years from the date any debt is issued. And then the Consolidated South allocation area was done in 2013 and will expire 25 years from the date any debt is issued. The next slide shows kind of a chart of the potential revenues here from this area, because there are a handful of allocation areas. You can see that in 24, estimates were around 2.7 million and came in at about 2.65 million. In 2025, we anticipate that to be about 2.8 million. And then in 2031, that decreasing to about 2.4 million. Now, I do want to note that once the allocation areas expire and you're just remaining with those, the South Main and the Consolidated South Elkhart, you're looking at about $424,000 in 2036. And that would remain, again, that the clock on those areas would start 25 years from the date any debt is issued. Illustrative budget here of about $2.7 million. From various items, and some of those projects on slide 23 include, you can see there on slide 23, the Phase 5 South Main Streetscape, Woodland Crossing redevelopment, the Benham Plan implementation, 1000 block Freight Street redevelopment, and South Main Quiet Zone establishment. And now we're going to move into the downtown allocation areas. So there are a variety here as well. We're going to start with allocation areas number 1 and 2, because those two specifically do have bonds outstanding from those. You can see allocation area number 1 has a variety of creation dates and expansion dates. The expiration dates range from 2033 up to about 2040. So we'll start to fall off slowly over time there. The allocation area number 2 was done in 2016 and will expire in 2042. And the next slides cover kind of what debt has been issued from this area, and what projects that funded. So those 2015 tax increment revenue bonds, those funded a variety of improvements, including the acquisition, renovation, and construction and demolition, installation or improvement of infrastructure, machinery, equipment, land, buildings. You see a variety of different things there that bond went to fund. And that's outstanding in an amount of about $5.45 million. The final maturity on that bond is February 1 of 2035. The 2017 bonds funded the construction and equipping and improvement of an apartment complex of 200 apartment units and variety of kind of retail commercial space. That bond is outstanding in the amount of $3,895,000. and will also expire in February 1, 2035. Slide 28, there is a third kind of loan here, the 500 Main project. So that project is specifically paid from a specific development within this allocation. That is the 500 Main project. And then the downtown allocation areas number 1 and 2, slide 29. This kind of shows the estimated tax increment. You can see collections came in above estimates around just under $3 million. And then you can see kind of that TIF kind of increasing a little bit here and then slowly decreasing over time as the expiration of Senate Bill 1 deductions come online. So you can see there that those TIF revenues range from $2.8 million down to about $2.45 million. And those bond payments, you can see there, those 2015 and 2017 bonds, those are about $1.1 to $1.2 million of debt payments per year. So that leaves about, again, anywhere from $1.3 to $1.67 million after bond payments are made. The next slide covers that 500 Main project loan specifically. And so you'll see here that the loan exceeds the revenues that are anticipated from this specific development. However, with this development, any shortfall that exists is incurred by the developer. So that project, they make up kind of payments there as far as if the TIF is short, which it's anticipated to be, the shortfall is made up by the developer, not by the existing TIF revenues. And you can see that there's a small note on the bottom that they have a minimum taxpayer agreement there to, again, kind of make up that difference. Going into allocation area number 3, was created back in 2018 and will expire January 1 of 2044. There is a loan here, the Taxable Economic Development Loan 1 Great Lakes project, funded a grocery center and an apartment complex, a kind of variety of things, and is outstanding in amount just under $4 million, will expire August 1, 2043. And you can see here that the allocation area number 3 on slide 33, collections are just around $450,000 a year. The taxpayer does have a minimum annual payment here as well to cover the loan in case TIF does not come in where it's anticipated to. You can see again the revenues decreasing to about $335,000 a year after new deductions, leaving about $50,000 to $60,000 a year of TIF on top of the debt payments. Slide 34 goes into downtown allocation areas number 4, 5, and 6. These were all created in October of 2023 and will expire 25 years from the date any debt is issued. Again, we've just shown what is in the ground as of taxes payable 2025. So when future development occurs, we will update these estimates certainly. Again, you can see the range there of increasing as abatements are expiring. So there is an abatement in this area. As that rolls off, the TIF revenue will increase. Again, in 2031, leveling out around $175,000 a year. And then there are 2 newer allocation areas, number 7 and number 8. Both of those were created in March of this year and will expire 25 years from the date any debt is issued. So you can see on the next, the last slide, kind of looking at this area as a whole, the downtown area, a total expenses of around $5.9 million, 1.7 of that being, from bonds and loans that we've discussed, and then 3.5 from capital outlays. And some of those projects, again, are listed on page 37. With 2025 property acquisition, Freight Street redevelopment, South Main Quiet Zone establishment, downtown Riverwalk improvements, and the downtown parking structure. Lastly, I just want to hit on a couple economic development areas. So the West 78 Business Park, Parkway at 17, and Boulder Run. I know Boulder Run is here on your agenda today, so I wanted to mention that one as well. So those allocation areas, you can see various creation dates, October of 22, and these will all expire 25 years from the debt issuance, 25 years from the debt issuance, Parkway at 17, and then Boulder Run. So again, various creations and expirations there, and those, as new development happens, we will kind of update that accordingly. Slide 42, so coming to the end here of this, we're looking at the impact analysis. So slide 42 kind of shows how TIF is captured. So TIF is a capture, again, of the assessed value. As assessed value increases over time, that multiplied by the tax rate generates the TIF dollars we've been talking about. So back when the areas were created, it set a base assessed value, meaning all of the assessed value of those properties at that time are the base. What's generated above and beyond that is multiplied by the tax rate to give you your TIF dollars. So that green incremental AV box is your TIF increment. The hope is that when these areas expire, you've created more assessed value, which you have, and you've kind of seen that in previous pages, to generate that post-project AV, and then that will flow through to the tax base once these areas end. So slide 43 looks at one of your taxing districts here, the Elkhart City Concord Township Taxing District. And with $10 million of assessed value, what does that kind of look like? So with capturing it from TIF versus if there was no TIF around. So the top half of the schedule looks at today, pay 2025. So you can see in this taxing district, you have the county, Concord Township, the city, Elkhart Community Schools, and the Elkhart Public Library. Those units make up this taxing district. Looking at the city specifically, most funds in the state of Indiana are at what's called a maximum levy, meaning that they cannot increase beyond what the state allows it to. You can go less than that, but you cannot go above. That increase rate is anywhere from 3 to 5% per year typically. So with the city, it's funds that are levy limited. You can see that there's an AV of $3.47 billion, generating a levy of $58.95 million. And the tax rate needed to support that levy is 1.6954. So the more assessed value there is, the less the tax rate needs to be to support that levy, and vice versa. For the city's CUME Capital Development Fund, that fund is outside of the maximum levy, meaning that increases in assessed value can increase the revenues this fund sees, and decreases in assessed value would cause decreases to the revenues this fund sees. And you can see that fund generates about $1.6 million a year off of a 0.0472 tax rate. So as a whole, this taxing district rate is 3.2217. However, for TIF purposes, it is 3.1988. And the reason for that is TIF cannot capture post-2009 referendum funds. So the Elkhart Community School debt referendum, the TIF cannot capture that tax rate. So that's why the TIF tax rate is a bit less. And you'll notice in their line items, the AV for the referendum fund is higher than the AV for the other school funds. And that, again, because all of the TIF makes up that increase. So when $10 million of incremental assessed value, that would generate the Redevelopment Commission approximately $300,000 of TIF. So $10 million, roughly $300,000 of TIF because of circuit breaker caps. That's for like an industrial or commercial type property. So what would happen if that $10 million was not there, right? It was passed through, or it was the TIF area ended. $10 million of assessed value would then flow through to the tax base. So going back to the city, instead of a $3.47 billion AV, we're looking at $3.48 billion. The levy would remain the same for the main fund, and the tax rate would go from 1.6954 to 1.6905. Again, a lesser tax rate being needed because there's more assessed value. The CUME Capital Development Fund would be able to increase $4,720. And when you apply that same kind of logic to all the taxing units in this district, you can see that the total rate decreases 0.0073 cents. From 3.2217 to 3.2144. And gross levy increases from those outside funds would be $11,350. So the tax rate would come down slightly, the gross levies would increase a bit. There could be some decreases in circuit breaker losses that would happen as well. But in turn, you would not have the $300,000 of TIF to do the projects that we've kind of talked about on prior pages, or pay bonds, or things like that. So that kind of concludes my presentation. Thank you for for having me here today. I'm happy to answer any questions. As I mentioned, the other report that you have is kind of just a detail driven of this presentation and goes through if you have any questions about why a TIF estimate is this will cover that.
Thank you so much. As you did last year, you make this so clear, or let me put it that way, a little clearer. I get a little bogged down in the tax stuff, but this really helps us understand a little bit more about what we're doing.
Well, absolutely. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate that. Have a nice rest of your day.
Have a motion, resolution before you. Essentially, there will be no excess TIF to be distributed.
Second.
Any questions or comments from the commissioners? Any questions or comments from members of the public? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Boulder Run, where'd you go, Mike? Boulder Run public hearing.
Thanks for your attention in the last two matters. I know we're trying to get better, so last year we didn't do the TIF report until towards the end of the year, knowing we need to get ahead of this, the no excess TIF piece and planning into budgeting for next year. That's what led to us having the conversation today. As you noticed, we have some new TIF districts noted in the report, one of them being Boulder Run. Today we've got the public hearing related to the confirmatory resolution. You'll remember we started this process earlier this year. This process has gone through the Plan Commission approval, that's gone through the council approval. We've also had EDC approval outlining the bonds. What we're asking for today are two items. One, maybe it's three. To approve the confirming resolution after the public hearing today, it is actually three. To pledge the TIF from the development towards the developer purchased bond, and then to finalize the economic development agreement. I'll quickly summarize. The project is a new 86-unit single-family home subdivision located in the northeast part of the city. The developer is anticipating investing $7 million in infrastructure. We are pledging through the creation of a new residential TIF, as Greg outlined. That's a 20-year time limit on the TIFs. It captures the 1% of the residential, single-family residential TIF towards the bond that they will purchase. We anticipate that will capture about $3 to $3.1 million. So just under half of what they invest in real estate, in infrastructure costs, will come back through the TIF. This is something that is definitely needed in our community. I was presenting this to the council earlier this week, and we will hopefully, the next step in the council process is to approve the bond ordinance next Monday. The agreement we have with the developer is that the costs of the bond will be used towards the infrastructure. The TIF pledge will be 80% of the TIF's revenues being pledged towards the project. The remaining 20% will be reserved by the city to help offset public safety or to capitalize for future capital improvements or expenses we might have to make in that TIF district. So again, asking for approval of the confirming resolution, asking for support of the TIF pledge of the 80% towards the bond, and then approval of the development agreement. And happy to answer any questions. The developer is present in the audience as well.
Are these all market rate?
So they are. The TIF effectively will help reduce the per lot costs, but they are market rate. The developer anticipates 12 to 15 or 1,600 square foot homes, likely in the range of $350,000-ish, $100,000. For a new build, correct.
I think I need to open this for public hearing. Comments? from Participating electronically. And I will now close the public hearing.
I think it's worth noting, as the resolution indicates, that on April 8th, the commission approved and adopted a resolution which created the Boulder Run Economic Development Area, approved a plan for the area and a housing development program plan, and established an allocation area for purposes of tax increment financing. That went before the Elkhart City Plan Commission, and on May 5 of 2025, it issued its order certifying that the resolution and plan conform to the general plan of development for the city, and it went before the Common Council on May 19th of 2025, which approved the written order of the Plan Commission and the plan for the area, and approved the designation of the area as an economic development area, and on May 29th, 2025, required public notice was published in the Elkhart Truth. So there is pending before you today a motion to confirm that declaratory resolution and the findings, determinations, and designations, and approve and adopt the actions that were taken in that declaratory resolution, confirm the findings of fact, and determine it will be of public utility and benefit to proceed with, the plan, which is attached as Exhibit C to that resolution. So there should be a motion to confirm the declaratory resolution. All is set forth in the confirming resolution.
Thank you, Gary. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Second. Questions or comments from the commissioners? Questions or comments from members of the public? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Resolution granted. And thank you all. Thank you, Mike, for that presentation. Now we're running to the Boulder Run TIF pledge.
This is a matter of, we would need a motion to pledge the tax increment revenues from the Boulder Run Economic Development Area to the payment of certain economic development tax increment revenue bonds of the city relating to that housing project. All as set, and they are talking about two different series of bonds at this point of a length of 20 years. So you would need a motion to approve that resolution as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments from the commissioners? Questions or comments from members of the public? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Did I get them all? Sorry, Luke, I didn't hear you. Okay. Resolution granted. Thank you. Emerald Chase Economic Development Agreement.
This is the economic development agreement attached to the resolution, which was negotiated with Emerald Chase, the developer of the Boulder Run Economic Development Area project. So you would need a motion to approve the economic development agreement that is attached to the resolution, and authorize the president to execute and attest that agreement in the form attached. with such changes as the president shall approve in the event there are any changes or additions that need to be made to it.
Motion, please.
Second.
Questions or comments from the commissioners? Questions or comments from members of the public? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Resolution granted. And I would like to thank the developers for their work and to give us some badly needed housing in this area. Looking forward to working with you all. Okay. Vice Miller appropriate additional funds for Labor Pump VRP services.
We received a billing from Ice Miller a week or so ago and realized that we did not have sufficient appropriated funds to pay that bill in full. We had part of the funds previously appropriated. So you have before you a resolution to appropriate an additional $20,000 from the Consolidated South Elkhart Economic Development Redevelopment Area Allocation Area Special Fund to apply to the payment of the current and future Ice Miller Labor VRP services billings as received. And if it turns out there's any balance remaining after completion of all those services, those funds would be applied back to the appropriate account. We need a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments from the commissioners? Questions or comments from members of the public? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Airport roof repair.
Good afternoon. Adam Fan, Assistant Director of Redevelopment. In your packet, you were provided a memo from the airport manager requesting an appropriation of a do not exceed amount of $100,000 from the Aeroplex Allocation Area Special Fund to award and approve the contract to Midland Engineering Company Incorporated for repair of the roof at the maintenance building of the airport. We do have the manager, Mr. Andy Jones, here to answer any questions if you have any.
Is that the total cost?
It's a do not exceed.
And that's essentially a replacement of the roof, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah.
Like there's a big hole right in the on one end there.
So you would need a motion to approve the award of the BOAC project contract to Midland Engineering Company, Inc., and appropriate $100,000 from the Aeroplex Allocation Area Special Fund to pay for that project.
So move.
Second.
Questions or comments from the commissioners? Questions or comments from members of the public? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Resolution award approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. 1101 Beardsley contract for Roberts Environmental Services remediation.
So as you're aware, we are currently underway in a remediation of the 1101 Beardsley property. And as part of that remediation, the Environmental Protection Agency noticed that we had some higher levels of lead in the soil, so they are going to come in and do a remediation themselves for those higher levels. And while they're on site, we can't use the revolving loan funds, the state funds, while the federal funds are being used. So I've asked Roberts Environmental to provide a contract for services that would need to be done while the EPA is still on site. We still need to do some monitoring. There's some well installations. We will have to rework the bid specs for the excavation portion that we're going to do as soon as they're done. So I'm asking the commission to appropriate an amount of $144,000 from the Brownfield Services account to cover the costs of any of those ongoing services that would need to be done while EPA is on site.
So you need a motion to approve the proposal of Roberts to provide the services outlined in it in an amount not to exceed $144,000 and appropriate that sum from the Brownfield Services account.
So move.
Second?
Adam,
What?
I do have a question. So are they just going to take like several,
So it's a targeted area, and they're looking between 12 and 18 inches of soil that they would
and they
take.
take it and then they put in?
No, they will not refill it because we're going to follow in behind them, because below that is some contamination of TCE that's in the soil that then we'll come in and remove that, and then we'll have to backfill everything.
Questions? Any questions from members of the public? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Purchase of 234 St. Joseph Street.
So I think last meeting, we did just a voice vote to accept the offer of I think it was $35,000 to purchase the property at 234 St. Joe Street. So this is just us asking the commission to appropriate the sum of $40,000 to cover the cost of purchase, as well as any closing costs to follow through with that purchase agreement.
So you need a motion to appropriate $40,000 from downtown allocation area number 1, special fund to cover the costs associated with the acquisition of the property, with any excess funds remaining after closing on the purchase to be returned to the allocation area number 1, special fund.
Second?
Any questions or comments from the commissioners? Questions or comments from members of the public? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Resolution approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, DLZ Amendment 1 on call.
So if you'll remember previously, we approved this agreement. The agreement was basically specified with almost like a one project, $50,000 cap, recognizing that the value of having them on call would probably be for multiple projects and not a single project. This basically amends that for a higher maximum cap. It doesn't mean we're spending it all on this project. We would still go out for additional projects. This just is a contract to allow us to not have to bring a new contract back every time.
So you would need a motion to approve the amendment to the DLZ agreement as attached to the resolution.
So move.
Second?
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Sorry. Any questions? Any questions for members of the public? I beg your pardon. Okay, we'll do it again here. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Then we have a last item on Labor Pump, and I don't see.
I have it. There would be a need for expert witness assistance in the prosecution of the litigation that's pending on the Labor Pump matter at a cost that would not be expected to exceed $29,000. So we would need a motion from you to appropriate the sum of $29,000 from the Brownfield Services Special Fund to apply to payment of current and future expert witness fees as billed, with any funds remaining after completion of all those services to be applied to the appropriate account.
So moved.
Second.
Comments from the commissioners? Questions or comments from members of the public? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Staff updates.
So I had Woodland Crossing on mine, so that threw me off. Just a couple updates. I don't know, did you guys get the invite for the 16th for the ribbon cutting? No. You did? You did? You didn't? State Road 19?
I've got it marked down because you
Okay.
told us last week, but
Okay. Yeah, 16th at 10:30. I'm sorry? For the State Road 19 ribbon cutting? Okay, I will make sure you guys get an invitation at 10:30 in the morning. And I believe it'll be at the park in front of,
You mentioned it.
yep, I wasn't sure if they sent it out or not, but I will make sure you guys get that. So that's happening. That's exciting. And then the only other thing is Roberts is actually on site right now doing, at 1101 Beardsley, doing some additional well installations for monitoring as well as doing some injections when EPA gets on site. They wanted to get kind of everything established, get some of the injections in the ground, get the groundwater kind of flowing while they're doing their excavations. And then when they leave, they can come back and do some testing. So it just kind of, it all worked out nice that we can get some things done.
When do we anticipate the EPA will be on site?
So they are federal government, so they run a little slower than us, right? They're thinking that probably around July, and then they'll be done probably Labor Day-ish, and then we can come right back in behind them. So, thank you.
other updates? Next item, approval of the May 2025 invoice from Warwick and Boyne. I'm showing $22,113.61. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you.
Approve, same.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, invoice approved, and it looks like our TIP report. Any other questions, comments from the public? Going to be none, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Well, thank you. You guys make it easy as well.
Well, I would second that. I
Easy
very
board.
much appreciate
Very
folder
much.
each time.
You bet.
I also want to, you reminded me, I want to thank Mary and her staff for all the work they did on the
CDBG?
CDBG, yes, and all those others. That was a lot of work. Oh, anything else? Motion to adjourn?
Yes, please.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.